Hey everyone, Chris of Midlife Crisis Media here. Welcome to the first of the Film Collection 2024 live streams that are all about my 4K UHD collection. Click over here. Yeah, I wasn't able to do the stream last Thursday because I had friends coming over from out of town and had to clean up the joint because they were going to be staying here for a few days. So wanted the place looking all spick and span. So I needed to devote as much time as I could to clean the place up. And it worked out okay. So today I'm going to be talking about all of the television shows that I have on 4K UHD. There's not a lot because not a lot of stuff is released that is from television on the format, at least not yet. Hopefully now that I think Disney released a bunch of their stuff from Disney Plus, and I think Paramount has also released some stuff on 4K, and HBO has been doing it for a while, that the numbers are good and other companies will follow suit finally. But not nearly as much as is available on Blu-ray, and definitely not nearly as much as available on DVD, which is still like the dominant format, which surprises the hell out of me. So I'm going to be talking about the few television shows I have on the format and the first half of all of the box sets I have on the format, meaning oversized packaging that doesn't fit on a normal shelf, compilations that have multiple films in one set. Let me see here. What else? The larger sized steelbooks that I have, that kind of thing. Things that don't fit on my normal my normal Blu-ray / UHD shelf goes in the box set section, where everything that is like off size and slightly bigger and has multiple movies in it, that's where I keep that stuff. So I'll be talking about the first half of that collection, and I am warning you, there will be at least a spoiler, maybe two, for the August end of the month pickup stream, because there is something in this stack that I have not talked about yet that it showed up this month. So talk about it when we get there. So let's just get into it. So when it comes to 4K, I don't have a standalone 4K player, like a dedicated 4K UHD player. They're kind of expensive still. I would like to get one that is region free. Those are even more expensive. They're like $400 some, because then I can watch not only the 4K UHDs that come from overseas, even though they already are region free. It will let me watch the region locked Blu-rays that sometimes come with these UHD sets that I have. So I do have quite a bit that comes from overseas. Like we're talking the UK, Australia. I'm trying to think where else. China, I think, is a couple of them. And these companies try to dedicate as much disk space as is available on these 4K UHDs to make the movie look as good and sound as good as it possibly can. And usually there are no extras on those discs. They relegate those to a Blu-ray that usually comes with. If one of these sets comes with or comes from overseas somewhere, that Blu-ray is usually region locked and I can't watch the extras. So I would definitely at some point love to get a region-free Blu-ray / 4K player. Right now I am using my PlayStation 5, which is a 4K player, as is my Xbox One X, but I don't think it's nearly as reliable a player. I hear many people, including myself, this has happened to me, putting their brand spanking new UHDs in the Xbox One X or even the Series X sometimes, and the disc just will not be recognized, making the person who owns said disc think that their disc is broken when it's really just there's a piss poor 4K, operating system or whatever, app they have built into the hardware is just not great. I have never, ever had a problem watching a 4K, a Blu-ray, a 3D Blu-ray, a DVD on my PS5. It is a fantastic media center, which I love. So I was not on the 4K bandwagon at first because, number one, didn't have a TV that could display such things. I got a 4K television, I want to say it was in 2020, as a gift from my mother, but she bought a really cheap one, which burnt out within a year. It was an LCD, but like within a year, I started having these purple like blobs start to cover the entire screen. It was the LCDs burning out. So I ended up in 2021, I think it was 2021. No, it was 2022. I got the TV in 2021. I got the new one in 2022. I ended up going to Best Buy and just buying one that was discounted from the previous year's models of a Samsung, and I've had zero problems with it. And it's great. But I was always using the Xbox One X as the 4K player that I would watch my movies on. I slowly started making the transition, like getting rid of some of the Blu-rays that I had already that were now available on 4K. If there was a certain movie that I knew would benefit the most from it, I would upgrade. I would get rid of my Blu-ray copy. I would sell it to like half-price books or give it to a friend or someone else, and then buy the 4K version. But over time, I'm sitting there going, all of this work's being put into remastering these things in this super high-def format. I would like to watch all of the things like that. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. There's some movies that don't benefit from it at all. There's some that definitely do. So I have slowly begun transitioning my entire collection of Blu-rays into 4Ks as they are being released. So now I have a massive 4K collection, which is crazy to me, where my collection was, let's say, at this time last year compared to where it is today. Holy crap. I'm like running out of space. So let's get into this. So we're going to talk about the 4K television shows first. I'm just going to bring them over here. Right in front of me. Not a whole lot. How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 titles. Most of these are from Disney. So we'll start off with, like I said, Disney was kind of progressive when it came to like releasing their Disney Plus series on home video, which is weird because Netflix doesn't seem to want to do it. Paramount Plus didn't really seem interested in doing it all that much. They were doing the Star Trek shows, but not much else. Amazon does not seem to do it. Peacock does not do it. I don't think any of the major streaming services outside of Disney and now Paramount have even considered. HBO, also. HBO has been doing it since the beginning, honestly, now that I think about it, because Game of Thrones has been available on 4K for quite a while. So when they started releasing their Disney Plus shows, I was like all in. And we're talking about Falcon, what cannot talk. I'm getting over a really bad cold. I had, like, my friends came to visit over the weekend to go to a Final Fantasy concert here in Chicago, and they left Sunday morning, and Sunday night I started to get sick. And the last 3 days I've called out of work because I had a really bad head cold. Today's the first day where I felt well enough to go to work, but I'm still tired. So I'm probably going to be mumbling a lot. Falcon and the Winter Soldier. This was the second Marvel show that was broadcast on Disney Plus after WandaVision. And I really, really like this one. I really like the character of the Falcon. And I really do like Bucky, the Winter Soldier, who used to be a bad guy, now he's a good guy. I like the teaming up of the two because I think they're a really good. One is like the way they was it Captain America Civil War, they argued, all the two characters like just did not like each other at all. They were always arguing with each other, calling each other names like I hate you, well I hate you too kind of thing. And here they kind of start off that way too when they're forced to work together, but by the end they are like actually friends and respect each other, which I really like to see happen over the course of the series. Also features in the first episode an action scene that would be right at home in a large budget or a massive budget Marvel feature film, where Wilson is chasing down some terrorists with his wingsuit through, I think it's the Grand Canyon, and it is crazy. It is nuts. Like, it is a perfect way to open this show and say, like, yeah, you're going to get the theatrical Marvel experience at home. And it was great, especially during the pandemic where not a lot of movies were coming out. This was like the perfect thing to sit down and make you think you were watching something theatrical. It was that cool. And I really liked where it ended up going. The story is interesting. It sets up a couple of interesting parts of the Marvel universe, like Captain America, Steve Rogers was not the only person that was given the super serum. There was someone else in the mix that was given it too. And they're not happy about it because of the way they were treated, which is awesome. I love that section of the story and how it affects Falcon also. I also like that because of the blip, all the people that came back when it was undone at the end of Endgame now have been displaced because we've kind of, like, for those 5 years that the blip happened, or after the blip happened, everybody moved on. And now all of a sudden we don't have enough resources for all these new people that just pop back up into into our reality. We don't have housing and all that. So all these people feel that they've been jilted of where they were when they were blipped away. And they're kind of fighting back, which is great. Also, really sets up the new Captain America movie very well. Obviously, if you've seen the trailer for the new Captain America movie, that by the end of this series, Falcon becomes the new Captain America. And well-deserving. I love the fact that he doesn't think he deserved the fact that Captain America turned the mantle of the character or the role over to him, and he doesn't feel he deserves it. And watching him come to terms with it and accepting it is another great part of the show. I think it's a fantastic show. And the thing is, Disney's always releasing these in steelbooks, which is great. Next up, we have the first season of The Last of Us. This is a show I never thought would ever happen. I thought the closest we were ever going to get to seeing The Last of Us was watching Quiet Place Part 2. I thought that was like, this is the closest we're ever going to get to seeing The Last of Us realized on the big screen somewhere. And then this got announced, and I was like, holy crap, they better get it right. Luckily, they brought the people in who wrote the games and all that, and it ended up being fantastic. I was a little iffy on the casting at first. I was like, yeah, Pedro Pascal is cool. I like him in The Mandalorian, but Joel? But the way they worked him into the story, and Joel looks like your typical, white dude in the game. Here, Pascal is Latino, and they cast his brother as Latino also, but they do have like a standard, like Smith style last name. And just, it's not a big deal. And because nobody brings it up, I was fine with it. I was like, okay, cool. It's the way it is, and that's it. And Bella Ramsey as Ellie is fantastic. She basically embodies the video game character perfectly. The show does kind of summarize some things, expand on other things, kind of finds workarounds for things that had more time to develop in the game. Because the game lasts for like 20 some hours, and here you've got like, 8 to 1 hour long episodes. You can't really go into super detail, but it looks like the game. It feels like the game. It sounds like the game. It is fantastic. And it even adds in an extra character, or expands on a character that you come across in the game. There's an entire episode basically dedicated to them, which I think is one of the best hours of television I've ever seen. And on top of that, they added the DLC Left Behind in as an episode of its own, which was fantastic as well. So I'm really excited that they ended it the way they did, or they ended this season the way they did, kind of the way the game ended, kind of like on this moment where, Joel has said something that's not true. Does Ellie really believe him or not? And is it going to change their relationship at all? Because they have this, father-daughter bond. I really am looking forward to season 2 and seeing if they're actually going to follow through with the things that happen in part 2 of the game. I'm pretty sure they will, because someone's playing Mr. Fantastic now, and he's probably not going to have time to do another series or another season of that. Anyway, here's another Marvel Disney Plus show. That is the first season of Loki. This was, I do believe, the first one that they released on home video alongside WandaVision, because they wanted to get this out because the second season was about to... Boo, what's up, VGM? What's going on? Boo to what? The second season of Loki was about to drop. So they want to get this out so everybody could catch themselves back up if they had gotten rid of the service and would want to get it again to watch season 2. I jumped on it because this is a fantastic show. I loved the way they mess around with Loki in it, and the multiple versions of him that he comes across, and the whole multiverse thing that they're doing. What did I just rip something on my shirt? No. Boo, as in a ghost. Oh, I get you. I see what you're doing. I did not notice it the first time I watched this. I watched this show like as it was being broadcast. Every week a new episode would drop on Disney Plus. And once it had all dropped, I went back and watched it again, and to binge it to see if I had missed anything, because it felt like there was a lot of things that were being planted in earlier episodes that I felt didn't quite get paid off in the final episode. So I wanted to go back and rewatch it to see if I missed anything, and I definitely did. Things that just kind of go over your head. And because of the weekly format that they were doing, the little details kind of go whoop. So I wanted to watch it again all at once, and I did miss things. But I did catch that every episode, there are 6 episodes in this season. 6 episodes. Each episode is color themed with one of the Infinity Stones. There's an orange episode, there's a yellow episode, there's a purple episode, a green episode, a blue episode, and I think I missed a color somewhere. Red. Which I thought was really cool, and just the way it worked, I did not even catch it because of that whole weekly format thing that I'm not used to. I'm used to the Netflix way of things now, because I don't watch normal television at all anymore. I don't even have cable. I'm used to like Netflix just dropping the entire series at once, and you can watch it at your own pace instead of having to wait week after week. So kind of didn't catch that at all because of the way of that. So great show, does great things for the character of Loki, and the second season is even better, if you ask me. I do. I like it now. I didn't like it at first when like the Mandalorian started doing it. I was kind of like, oh man, I gotta wait a whole week. But it wasn't like you were missing information, or like information you were required to remember from episode to episode. Because the beginning of the Mandalorian, it was kind of like each episode was its own thing. It wasn't really like a long form like season, kind of like Deep Space Nine was, or serialized that much. It is now, but now I'm used to it because a lot of everybody's doing that. Amazon used to release everything at once. Now they're with the boys and everything. They're releasing everything weekly. Disney Plus does it. Paramount does it with the Star Trek stuff. I'm fine with it now. Definitely, I would say get like a free weekend or something, or like, like the month for free deal when they throw them out there every once in a while, because season 2 of Loki goes to some crazy places, and I absolutely love it. Here is one of the Disney Plus Marvel shows that I was not a fan of, but I picked this up because I was a member of the Disney Movie Club, and when it was closing down at the beginning of this year, they did a special where it was like, if you're a member, buy one title at full price, and every other title you buy after that is 60% off. So I was like, I'm going to buy the expensive stuff, meaning these Disney Plus, TV show Steelbook box things. So I bought one, and then I bought 3 more and got super discounted. So I paid like I said, 60% of what they were going for. So I was like, if I'm going to pay the $17 for these, that I might as well just get this one too and complete the set, because who knows once the movie club shut down if they're going to release any more after that. So I got Moon Knight. I was really interested in this character. Didn't really know anything about him. A guy that I work with, it's his favorite Marvel character. From the comic books, he thinks the character is great. So I was kind of excited to watch this, and I was really excited that they cast Oscar Isaac as the character. And then I watched the show, and I thought it was not only super boring, the character is not that likable. You only see Moon Knight maybe 3 times the entire show, and he doesn't really do jack shit. And like the multiple personalities that the main character has, I thought were kind of annoying. So not a big fan of this one. I did like the villain. Ethan Hawke plays the villain in this, and he is really creepy. But everything else about it I thought was just kind of like a big missed opportunity. Like they were just trying to throw another Marvel character out there for us to love. And I was like, not all of them are going to be winners. Some of them might not translate very well to the visual medium like they do in comic books, because it seems like Moon Knight's more of an internal character, kind of like Swamp Thing. So didn't really work for me, but I wanted to have it so I could have all the Marvel things available. Not my favorite, though. Yeah, I don't understand that whole Disney Plus wrongful death thing. That makes no sense. They're going to definitely lose that case. There is no way in hell that's going to fly. Pretty sure they're going to settle out of court for some undisclosed amount, aka millions, and you'll never hear about it again. Yeah, the people that run Disney are kind of shitty, but I like their content. I think that Joss Whedon is a human piece of shit, but he's also a really good writer and makes some really good TV shows. They actually going to court, that's crazy. Anyway, now we're going to Paramount Plus, and the only new Star Trek show that they have released on 4K is Strange New Worlds. This is also, aside from season 3 of Picard, my favorite Star Trek show that's on Paramount Plus that has, of new Trek, they're calling it. It's another prequel. I don't understand what Paramount's obsession with prequel shows to the original series are, but they just keep on doing it. So this is a prequel spinoff from Discovery, because in Discovery they brought in the Enterprise, and at the end of season 1, and then season 2 dealt specifically with Captain Pike from the Enterprise captaining Discovery all during season 2, and also that Burnham is looking for her, stepbrother Spock, who's missing in season 2, to bring them together. And it was also kind of like a backdoor pilot to see if there was any interest in a prequel series with the Enterprise crew right before Kirk took over for the original show. Turns out there was, because Pike was a really cool character. They developed him really well on Discovery. He was played really well by Anson Mount. Ethan Peck playing the new version of Spock was great. He's perfect in the part. So they gave them their own show, which is Strange New Worlds, and I love it. It went back to the original series format, like the original series and Next Generation, where each episode is its own thing. There might be some story threads that carry through to other episodes, but it's not like a constant thing like on Deep Space Nine, where it was like serialized. Here it's like each episode has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Beginning, middle, and end. Beginning, middle, and an end. And you might have like a little story thread, like the fact that the security officer, La'an, has an issue with the Gorns because they murdered her entire family and the colony that she used to live on. So she's kind of traumatized by that. And then whenever they bring the Gorn back in, she's got issues with them. So that kind of thing. It's absolutely fantastic. I love it. I love all the characters on the cast. The Andorian character, who is the main engineer, was played by an actor who is basically blind. I think he only has like 10% of his vision. and he plays the Andorians, or actually he plays an Anar, who is the sub race of the Andorians who live underground, who are basically blind. They do everything by sound. They're almost like Daredevil, where they work by echolocation and stuff. Which I thought was a really cool twist, that they actually brought a basically blind actor to play a blind character. And then what happens to him is like, damn. So absolutely love this show. It ended on a really cool cliffhanger at the end. Can they effectively kill you and get away with it? We'll see. We shall see. But I don't go to amusement parks, so I don't feel compelled to find out. Then they released season 2 on 4K as well as a Steelbook. Season 2 is even better than season 1. And there's a lot of bells and whistles that came with this too. It came with a series of like gigantic magnets that are the size of this Steelbook that I have all over my fridge that are like character portraits. One is Spock, one's Uhura, one is Dr. Chapel or Nurse Chapel, and one is number 1, Una, the first officer. And it also came with a poster for get this, the musical episode. There are 2 wacky episodes in this season. So that's the other thing about the show. They kind of go between being comedy and serious and like sometimes horror. Then there's other ones that are just like specifically character-driven episodes and all that. But they decided to get kind of wacky this season. So there's an episode that's a crossover with Lower Decks, which is the animated show that they have, which is basically like watching Star Trek Family Guy. And the 2 of the animated characters come over into the reality of this show and are realized in live action by the people who voice them, which is Jack Quaid from The Boys and Tawny Newsome, I think, who was just a voice actor and a writer and a comedian. And it is a fantastic episode. It is super funny. And then the following episode is this musical episode, because it turns out that 80% of the cast of this show came from musical theater. And when the writers realized that, they're like, maybe we should do a musical episode, take advantage of these people's skills. And it ended up being a really amazing episode. I am not a musical fan at all. I ended up downloading the damn soundtrack, and I still listen to it in my car every once in a while. The songs are fantastic character development songs, which is the way a musical is supposed to be. Absolutely love this season, and it ends on a crazy-ass cliffhanger, and season 3 is supposed to start up by the end of this year, I think it is. End of this year, beginning of next year. I can't remember. I want to say that this season ended last year. So maybe by the end of this year we'll get it. Anyway, now on to the rest of the Disney Plus stuff. Definitely had to get this in that sale. This was the one that I bought for full price. And that is Star Wars Andor. This is the first season, So a lot of the Star Wars and Marvel shows are one season only. It's like a limited series type of situation. WandaVision is a single season. Falcon and Winter Soldier was a single season. There's talk of maybe giving Moon Knight a second season, but I don't know if that's actually going to happen. Miss Marvel's only getting one season. And a lot of the Star Wars stuff too. So Mandalorian is the only one that has had multiple seasons so far. Obi-Wan's going to be one. Acolyte just got canceled. But Andor is actually getting a season 2. It was actually developed with 2 seasons in mind, because there was so much story that they had written as backstory for Andor that it's not only, this was the longest running series on Disney Plus. This had the most amount of episodes for one season of any of the new shows on Disney Plus. But it actually had to spill over into a second season, which they are working on now. And once that is over, the show is done. But this is a prequel to Rogue One, which is a prequel to the original Star Wars. It takes place between episode 3 and 4. So this follows Andor, who was in the Rogue One crew, how he became a member of the Resistance, how he became a rebel. Starts off, he's kind of like a thief and a thug, and starts to realize that, some things are worth fighting for when he starts to see how his, I don't know how to word it. the way he just kind of like doesn't really care about anything other than himself, how it affects everyone, how the Empire is affecting everyone around him because of his non-action. And so by the end of the first season, he is fully invested in the rebels. There is this whole thing that takes place in a prison that has one of the coolest scenes I've ever seen on a TV show, when they realize something is happening in a different wing and how it's going to start affecting everyone else. It is so freaking cool. I absolutely love it. And I think that the character is definitely a lot more interesting than they made him out to be in Rogue One. And I'm glad that they have expanded on him in this. Episode 3.9, Rogue One. You got it. Star Wars Visions? No, they have not released those physically yet. I'm surprised they haven't, because there's like 2 series of that also. They also have not reviewed or released that final season of Clone Wars or any of the Bad Batch stuff yet. So maybe they were testing the waters with all this stuff. But now Sony owns the rights to distribute all of Disney's stuff now. So there's that. Maybe Sony will be a little bit more forthcoming with releases once they get their shit together. Then we also have the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian. Personally, the 2 good ones. The third one, it was fine. Just wasn't my favorite. You can tell that they were trying to angle towards something different because of... I'll talk about when we get there. So first season, fantastic show. Sets up Din Djarin, the Mandalorian character, and Grogu, the baby Yoda. Like I said, I'm getting over that head cold I had. All this talking's not helping. Setting up their relationship, kind of like this whole father-son thing by the end of the first season. Fantastic. Sets up a lot of Mandalorian lore also that you didn't get to see in Clone Wars, because you got a lot of Mandalorian lore on that show. Here it kind of goes into like a different sect of Mandalorian culture, which I thought was really interesting. And then we have season 2, which also tries to set up some side projects like the Ahsoka show, aka Rebels season 4, or is it 5? I can't remember how many seasons Rebels had. I didn't like it all that much anyway. And also brings in a legacy character by the end of the season, which is fantastic. And I absolutely love the show by the end of this season. But they kind of ruined it with the Boba Fett show, because the end of season 2 was supposed to be the end of Grogu. Grogu was supposed to go away and never come back, and the show was supposed to move on. And the scripts for season 3 were already written and were getting ready to be produced. And then when they were doing the Book of Boba Fett, they realized just how popular Grogu was with the audience. And it was a mandate that came down from above that said, no, you need to bring Grogu back and make the show about the 2 of them again. So part of the Boba Fett show ended up switching gears and moving the focus away from Boba Fett. It was shitty already, as you ask me. Back to Din Djarin and him and Grogu getting back together. So all the plans that Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau had made for their season 3 had to get scrapped and started over, which is why season 3 feels kind of like very disjointed, because they're kind of making it up as they went. And it doesn't really have a focus because of that mandate that made them force the characters back together again. So, Mando, Grogu. But we are getting a movie now, which I'm really excited about. And it's called Mandalorian and Grogu, which is going to be awesome. Yeah, they forced them to put the Mandalorian back into the show and to do this like season 2.5 bullshit instead of focusing the show on Boba Fett. Now, mind you, Boba Fett is my least favorite Star Wars character. I think he's very overrated. I don't know why everyone has a boner for the guy. He does nothing in those movies except get taken out by a blind guy and eaten by a giant sand vagina. And that's it. And everyone's like, this guy is so rad. I'm like, is he though? Is he? Anyway, then we have what is one of my favorite shows that they have done Star Wars-wise, and that is the ObiWan Kenobi series, limited series, where they brought back Ewan McGregor to play Obi-Wan Kenobi and Hayden Christensen to play Vader again. Absolutely loved it. Only thing I liked about the prequel movies was Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi. He was the only one who looked like he was taking his job seriously. And was trying hard. Everyone else was just kind of like, George is making me do this. I don't want to do it, but Ewan McGregor looked like he gave a shit because he's a huge Star Wars fan outside of it. And yeah, it's a pretty cool story and involves Leia. Bail Organa calls on Obi-Wan to come out of retirement, for creeping on, for creeping on Luke on Tatooine. He needs him to come and help him rescue Leia, his adopted daughter, who's been kidnapped. And he kind of forms a bond with the girl, and it kind of brings him out of his forceless funk that he's been in. He's kind of forgotten how to use the Force over the years because he's in hiding from the Empire and he doesn't want to draw attention to himself. So he's kind of like distanced himself from the Force. And you see him come back to the Obi-Wan we remember in episode 3 by the end of the show. And it is really, really good. Really good. Also, some great fight scenes between Obi-Wan and Vader. One of them is particularly brutal, which I think is great. But I absolutely love it. Thought it was so fun. I was hoping we get another series. They're talking about the possibility of making it happen. I don't know. We'll see if it happens. Just love the Christmas special, Boba. Christmas special, Boba. What the hell are you talking about, Peter? Then we have WandaVision, which was the first Marvel Disney Plus show. And this came out during the height of the pandemic. I think it was like 2020 when this dropped. And I ate it up. It was one of those things where it was the whole weekly format thing actually worked because it kept the mystery going and it made it like a water cooler discussion topic kind of thing. Because the show, it features the Scarlet Witch and Vision, but they're not themselves. They're like stuck in a sitcom. And then each episode would jump ahead a decade and be a sitcom. Like it starts off with a sitcom from the 50s, like I Love Lucy. And then it jumps to the 60s. And then the 70s, the 80s, and 90s. And I'm like, it's crazy. And you can tell there's something definitely going on outside of what you're seeing. There's like all these weird clues that keep on popping up. It's like, what do these mean? I don't know. Well, you have to wait. And where it ends up going is absolutely fantastic. And it introduced a character who's getting their own show. Like, I think by the end of the year, I think by Halloween, we're getting that character's show. And like all we talked about when I was at work, when this was being broadcast, was what we thought was going on. It was really fun to actually sit down and try to have like these conversations trying to figure out what's really going on. It was so cool. And I absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it. And that's it for the television shows. So now we can go on to the box sets. And like I said, the box sets are multi-movie box sets, oversized packaging box sets, and like the strange-shaped steelbooks that I have. And we're going to start off with the Daniel Craig 5-film collection, 007 films. So this has Casino Royale, which I love. It was the reboot of Bond after Die Another Day. Die Another Day made a killing at the box office, but received, I think, the worst reviews out of any Bond movie ever made. And also, like, fan reaction was not great. So they were like, hey, we're going in the wrong direction. We're making this super cheesy. Why don't we try to go reinvent it and try to make him a grittier character, which seems to be the thing everybody wants nowadays. And Casino Royale did just that. Daniel Craig ended up being a great person to cast as Bond. He has it down pat. He can do the charming. He can do the, jokey, aspect of the character. And he can definitely do the action and the serious stuff. What's up, TJ? Christmas special Boba. What? Yeah, that's what I want to know. What you talking about, Peter? Talk to me. Tell me something. Is that the giant wave one? Yeah, that's the one where he decides to Tony Hawk a wave with the parachute, which looks like one of the worst CGI effects I think I've ever seen. So Casino Royale, I love. Also, I got a huge crush on Eva Green from that movie. She is gorgeous. Followed by what I think is one of the worst Bond movies. That is Quantum of Solace, which is the first Bond movie ever to pick up right where a previous film left off. These, all the old movies pre-Casino Royale were all individual stories. They never really carried anything over at all, except maybe the fact that Bond's wife died in On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and they reference it every once in a while, but it's never like a part of the plot. Here, it's like Casino Royale ends, and Quantum of Solace picks up right where that movie ends and continues the story. And it's like Bond trying to get over the fact that he was had by Vesper, his love interest from Casino Royale, and trying to find the people responsible for it. But the thing is, like, the villain of the piece And the Bond girl is actually pretty cool. I like Olga Kurylenko as the Bond girl, even though it's a Russian actress playing a Bolivian character, which I was just like, what? Her deal is cool because it's revenge and it mirrors Bond's revenge plot also. But the thing is, she's able to get her revenge and he is not, because he is Bond and he cannot do that kind of thing. But the villain of the piece is terrible. It is like this little mouse man who just talks a bunch of shit and there's no threat. It is also the shortest Bond movie ever made. The Star Wars Christmas special. Oh, that is the best thing Boba Fett ever did right there. You are right, Peter. That was the only cool thing, other than getting, because like I said, what did he do in Empire Strikes Back? He talked a couple of smack lines, he shot at a couple of people, and flew away with a corpsicle. Yay. And in the third movie, what did he do? Like I said, he got taken out by a blind guy and eaten by a sand vagina. He's so cool, guys, really. Then we have Skyfall, which I think is one of the best Bond movies ever made. Just all cylinders operating at all times. It is just beyond fun. It has a great villain. That scene where he pulls that fake jaw of his out and his face sags off. It's like, what? And does some really cool things with the M character, which I absolutely loved. And then what I think is one of the absolute worst Bond films ever made, like right at the bottom, like Quantum of Solace I think is bad, but I think Spectre, the following movie, is one of the most joyless, bland, boring Bond movies ever made. I cannot stand it. I recently went back and rewatched when this box set showed up, I rewatched all of these movies in a row. And it took me a while to get through Spectre. I do not like the love interest they introduced in the movie with Madeline. She, like out of nowhere, Bond's just kind of like, I love you. Like, out of nowhere, he's known her for a day, and he's like, I love you. And she's like, yeah, I love you too, baby. What? And then 2 minutes later, they're in London together, and she looks at him and goes, you know what? I'm not into this. I'm out. Bye. And walks away. I'm like, and he just kind of stands in the street and goes like, all right, I guess that just happened. It is so bad. It is so horribly written. Blofeld is finally introduced in Spectre, and he is just like the villain in Quantum of Solace. He's like a complete non-threat. He was like the big baddie in I don't know how many Bond movies back in the day, like 4 or 5 of them. And he's just like, guys, that's my brother over there. We never got along as kids. I'm going to kill him. And like, I don't understand. I love the actor who plays him. Christoph Waltz plays him great. But it's just like, it's written so badly. I did not give a shit at all. It is so bad. We all walked out of the movie theater opening night, me and my group of friends, and we all kind of stopped in the lobby and looked at each other. We're like, did that suck? And we're all like, yeah, I think it did. Like, that was like beyond bad. They're like, yeah, it was. Like, I just cannot stand it. But then we get No Time to Die, which is the final movie with Daniel Craig, and it finishes off all the loose ends, really tries to tie up every single loose end from these movies. Like every one of them, which is why it's almost 3 hours long. Including the whole Madeline thing. And they bring her back, and she still sucks, if you ask me. I cannot stand that character. I think she is so badly written, and I don't understand why Bond would want to be with her. But whatever. It's like, I half like it and I half dislike it because of Madeline and the way they handle some of the loose end tying that I was talking about. But it ends on a high note, I think, and they're going to reboot the series yet again now because, something happens in here where certain actors never going to come back and play that character again. Sorry, I'm still... that head cold really effed me over. Anyway, I just realized this is the second year in a row where I've been sick on my birthday. My birthday's tomorrow. I got sick on my birthday last year, too. Although tomorrow I'm going to be recovering from this bullshit. But that's... Anyway, so now I have these 3 volumes of the Alfred Hitchcock Classics Collection. So this one has Rear Window, which I love. Who's the actor in it? I can never remember his name. The what. James Stewart. Well, maybe I should go over there and do something about it. Where he's wheelchair bound and is like being a peeping Tom out his window with binoculars and sees a murder happen across the street, and he tries to do something about it, but he really can't because he's crippled. It's really cool. Vertigo, which is I've seen maybe once, and that's the one about the guy who has the fear of heights. Psycho is one of my all-time favorite films. Psycho does not need any description. It is a classic for a reason, and I have actually seen it in the theater, as well as The Birds, which is another classic that I love, which I saw in the theater as well, at the same theater down the street. But Tippi Hedren, the star of The Birds, was there and did a Q&A after the movie was over, and she is sharp as a tack and is super funny and charming, and I thought she was great. And I absolutely love both films. So I had to get this, because these movies that were like shot in black and white and like old film stock really seem to take the 4K upgrade extremely well. They look fantastic. They end up looking kind of like movies that were made nowadays, but still have all the film grain. Thank you, VGM. Thank you. Volume 2 actually has 5 movies on it. Ones I'm not very familiar with. The same with Volume 3. Saboteur, Shadow of a Doubt, The Trouble with Harry, Marnie, and Family Plot. Marnie has Sean Connery in it and Tippi Hedren. And it was the movie that where Tippi Hedren got blacklisted by Hollywood because of turning away Alfred Hitchcock's sexual advances during the making of the movie, that he ended up getting her blacklisted in Hollywood and kind of ruined her career for decades because he was kind of a schmuck. But I need to watch a lot of these. I've seen Family Plot and Trouble with Harry, but I've never seen Saboteur, Shadow of a Doubt, or all of them. I've seen bits and pieces of Marnie. Tomorrow's my freaking birthday, brah. Tomorrow. And then Volume 3 has another 5 movies, and I've only seen 2 of these. It has Rope, Man Who Knew Too Much, Torn Curtain, Topaz, and Frenzy. Rope is cool because it's presented as one continuous shot, if that's the one I'm thinking it is. And they hide the cuts by like passing behind like a pillar in the middle of a room or something like that. And that's where the cut happens. But it is presented like one continuous, unended take, where it really isn't. But it's awesome. And I've also seen Man Who Knew Too Much, which is the movie that Hitchcock made twice. He remade one of his own movies because he felt that his original version was not good enough and he could have done it better, so he remade it again. And I think it's the second version that's on here, not the first. So I need to watch the other ones on here. And here's one of the Steelbooks that is just slightly too big for my shelf with the standard size 4Ks on it. And I have a lot of these from Lionsgate. And Lionsgate does something special with their Steelbooks. And I've talked about it before in my pickup videos. They usually have hidden images on them because they always have a plastic slipcover that has images on that. And when you remove the slipcover, it reveals something else that's on the Steelbook underneath. This is one of the only ones that doesn't really do it. This is Angelart, which stars Mickey Rourke, Lisa Bonet from The Cosby Show, Zoe Kravitz's mom, and Robert De Niro. It's about a detective in Louisiana who's looking for this dude who is wanted and ends up finding out something completely effed up, which I will not. I'm going to be intentionally vague because this is one of those movies you just need to watch. It's very noir. It's also really grimy and kind of gross at times, like not gross like gore, but like grimy and just it feels icky. Get to see Lisa Bonet complete naked. That's what got her fired from The Cosby Show. And it has one of the greatest twists at the end of a movie ever. Like it is like a big punch in the dick. And I absolutely love it. I highly recommend it. It has a great score also. Very jazz. It's like if you were to mix jazz and a horror movie score together, it's really cool. Artwork doesn't really do much. It looks like Mickey Rourke sitting at a bar. And there's like some flames and you remove it. It's more of the bar. So nothing special here. This is the only one that's really underwhelming with that packaging. What's up, Retro Coop? God damn. Next up, I have the Apocalypse Now Final Cut. I actually think this has multiple cuts of the movie on it. Yeah. Final cut. on Blu-ray and 4K. Apocalypse Now, theatrical cut, and director's cut. So it's like the Blade Runner, where there was 3 different cuts. I still haven't watched the new final cut, but I have seen the original theatrical one, and I have seen the extended one. I actually saw that in the theater. They played it on the IMAX here in Chicago on Navy Pier during the summer, and I went and saw it, and I was like, wow, like, god damn, that movie is insane. Apocalypse Now. This is Francis Ford Coppola, right after he did The Godfather. He almost died while making this movie. I think he had a heart attack while he was making it. Also, the lead actor, Martin Sheen, had a heart attack while they were making the movie. It took over almost 2 years to film it, I think. But it's like Vietnam War kind of thing. And I love this packaging where you can see Martin Sheen and Marlon Brando in the reflections. Like, are they the same kind of person in the movie? Actually, really, really good. I highly recommend it. It's based on a novel called Heart of Darkness. And then we have these two. I like one of them. I don't like. I like it. I don't think it's great. I really like the other one, but I had to get them in these special collector's editions because of the different cuts that are available. And that's Avatar. These are the I don't know how they call them, the limited edition sets, I guess. I don't know how they really considered them, but this has 3 cuts of the movie. You have the theatrical cut, then you have the extended cut, and then you have the new director's cut of the film. And I just dropped some paperwork out. God damn. I'll get you later, motherfucker. Come here. Come here. Oh, it's the digital code. They're still doing digital codes? I'm not a big fan of the first Avatar. I think it's okay. I like it just fine. But it is, you ask me, it is Fern Gully, and it is a big cartoon. But it's entertaining enough. I just think it's kind of overhyped. But I also got the limited edition of Avatar 2, Way of Water, which I think is a far superior movie. There's more interesting. There's more characters to follow. The world of the water-bound Na'vi. The first movie deals with the ones the Na'vi that live in the forest of Pandora. This one deals with a tribe of Na'vi who live in the along the water lines, and their whole culture is about using the water to their advantage. And it is really interesting. It's really well thought out. It is beautifully shot. Also, some of the best 3D I ever saw in the theater. And it sets up some really cool things that are going to happen in the later Avatar movies, because we know there's going to be 5 of these by the end of the 2020s. They just announced the name of the third one. Was it Fire and Ash, which deals with another tribe of Na'vi, and really, really fantastic movie. I liked it quite a bit, so I had to get the limited edition of this. I don't think there's any different cuts of it here. I think he was given final cut, or Shatner, Cameron. Oh my God, I can't talk. Cameron was given final cut for this because the first movie broke box office records, and it's still the highest grossing movie of all time, almost making like $3 billion worldwide. So yeah, they let him do whatever the hell he wanted to make this movie and the other ones. So I had to get that. And then we come to a classic trilogy. That is the Back to the Future 35th Anniversary Limited Edition trilogy set. And each of the movies comes in a steelbook. And there's actually like dividers in the box to keep them separate. Artwork on them are kind of fun. So there's the first movie. It has like the DeLorean sitting in front of City Hall. And you've got Marty's parents back in the 1950s standing in front. Back to the Future 2 is like more of the car. So when you put these side by side, it kind of creates a giant picture. So there you've got the future version of Hill Valley. And then with part 3, how am I going to hold these together? This is going to be crazy. You have the Western version of the car, or the one from the third movie. I like this franchise quite a bit. I saw the first movie against my will. This opened the same weekend or weekend after the He-Man and She-Ra animated movie, which was called He-Man and She-Ra, The Secret of the Sword. And I was so this came out in 1985. Back then I was like, I was 10, 9 or 10. He-Man, like Masters of the Universe was my fucking world back then, dudes. So I was dying to see that freaking movie in the theater. We went to visit my cousins in Ohio, and whenever we would visit, they would always take me and my brother to go and see a movie. Well, they made the decision to go and see Back to the Future, and they were not going to hear otherwise. So we're sitting, me and my brother are like, we want to see the He-Man and She-Ra movie. My cousins, who are significantly older than me and my brother, were like, we're not sitting through that. We're going to go see Back to the Future. And we're like, but no! Tough. Thing is, we ended up loving it. So Back to the Future, the moment it came out on home video, it was in our constant rotation of movies we were watching. We loved it in our family. We watched it all the time. So I was super hype for the sequel. Oh, this box set is pretty rad. And then we have the second movie, which I was really looking forward to. And I do think this one is my favorite of the three because while it does fall into that trap of the second movie of a trilogy where like new problems are introduced and not completely solved for the next movie, which they knew was going to, like Return of the Jedi, everybody knew there was going to be a third Star Wars movie. So they introduced this big problem, which was Han being kidnapped, and taking the Jabba the Hutt at the end of Empire Strikes Back. So we would have something to look forward to for the final film. Same thing here. They set up all this new stuff with the paradoxes happening, and it makes the movie. I love the fact that this movie is so freaking complicated. They have to keep on retreading on old ground from the first movie in order to fix the problems that are happening, which I love so much. It makes watching the first movie even more fun, knowing what might be going on behind the scenes of what you're seeing in the movie. And then they have one big problem that happens right at the end of the movie, which is going to lead into the third film, which you knew was going to happen because 2 and 3 were shot back to back. One of the first times I ever heard of that happening outside of the original Superman and Superman 2 movies. So like this one, the second one came out, I do believe, in November of 1989. And the third one came out in May or June of 1990. And we were there opening weekend for both. And I am not a fan of Westerns at all. There's maybe 3 Westerns I'll sit through. So I was not super thrilled with this one being a Western. Because this one goes, the plot of this one moves all the way back to like 1889 or 1884 or whatever the hell it was. And it's just kind of like, eh. But now as an adult watching it, I'm like, okay, I get it. It's very charming. It focuses more on Doc this time around, which I thought was really kind of cool. Because we've gotten 2 movies that focused on Marty, trying to deal with problems that he helped create. And this one, it's focusing on finally getting Doc to a happy place in his life. Which as an adult, I'm like, that's really nice. It's great character development. So I appreciate this one more as an adult. Still don't think it's my favorite of the 3, but it's definitely way better than I used to think it was. And then we have this double pack, which is now completely obsolete. And I'll probably end up getting rid of this at some point because there are now 4 movies in this series. And that is this Bad Boys 1 and 2 box set. And it's really strange the way this is designed because, these movies will sit on the shelf like this. But the DVDs and they come out like this. And everything is like horizontal. Okay. So I like the Bad Boy series. I don't when it came to the first 2 films, I thought it was just fine. They're just dumb action movies. The first one was the first ever Michael Bay movie. And I remember watching it saying, there is nothing going on in this movie plot-wise, but visually, this is a stunner. This is shot so well. The action is so fun. I was like, I feel like I'm watching a music video, like an hour or a 2-hour music video. This is fantastic, but it had no plot. And then the second movie is basically that all over again, just with a bigger budget and more going on. Still, barely has a plot, but it is super fun to watch. And Will Smith and Martin Lawrence are a great team together. They play off each other very well. So they're entertaining. But I never looked at these films as anything other than just brainless action entertainment. There was nothing to them, but they're just fun to watch when you want to, not think about what's going on in the movie. But when it comes to the third film, I told my friends when the third movie came out, like right as COVID, destroyed the world, that I felt like the third movie was the first one in the franchise that actually was a real movie. Like it actually had a plot. It was actually trying to do something with the characters. It was actually trying to be a real film instead of just a glorified music video with a $150 million budget. Next up, we have a childhood favorite, which blew my mind that somebody was like, you know what? Let's give that a 4K restoration. Since the VHS days, they're still fun. They're still brainless. But like I said, part 3 surprised the hell out of me how good it was. I have not seen the fourth one yet. I will probably rent it digitally this weekend. Anyway, this is a movie that I watched all the time when it was on cable in the early 80s. It was on all times of the day because it was rated PG. This is also one of those PG-rated movies that would definitely get reclassified today and probably be either an R or a hard PG-13, because there is a lot of nudity, there is a lot of gore and violence, a lot of really suggestive things happening, and that is The Beastmaster. This has Mark Singer in it. If you ever watched V, the television show from the 80s, he was the lead on the show. It was like his first big thing, where he is this adventurer who has a power where he can speak to animals telepathically. So he always has a hawk with him. He has these 2 ferrets that sit in a pouch that are like thieves. And he also has a big old black panther that follows him around and is like his protector. And he goes after the dude who has usurped the kingdom away from him. He finds out that he was actually the prince of a kingdom, and then this dude named Mayax had his family killed and took the throne away from him, and he's trying to take it back. And it also has Tanya Roberts in it, who was a Bond girl in A View to a Kill. She is not a great actress. She ended up playing Sheena. And also John Amos from Good Times. The father from Good Times plays a warrior in here who helps Dar on his quest. And the villain is played by Rip Torn, who is the guy throwing wrenches at people's heads in Dodgeball. He's the villain. And that's like a big picture from. This was directed by the dude who directed all the Phantasm films, Don Coscarelli. And it was like his big, like, budgeted movie that bombed in the theater horribly, but became like a huge hit on home video and cable, which, like I said, I used to watch this every time it was on. I mean, ended up making a TV show out of it too, which I never watched. But the movie is, like I said, pretty graphically violent for a PG-rated film. And like I said, Tanya Roberts gets naked in this movie, I think 3 times, and it's not covered up at all. But because it was not in a sexual situation, it's okay. But like I said, if they were to reclassify this, I'm hard-pressed to say that it would get an R rating. I really do. But it's a lot of fun. It's a really fun fantasy movie. It's really kind of kitschy. The animal thing is pretty cool, too. The ferrets are adorable. There's actually like a really tear-jerkery kind of scene involving the ferrets at the end. But it's a really cool movie, which I never thought in a million years would get a 4K restoration. But there's another shot of artwork. That's the original poster right here on the inside. This blue one. And there's just way too much goddamn artwork. And then here's what I remember seeing at the video store, was this artwork. And it also comes with a booklet that has like concept art. And I think an essay in here as well. Yeah, there's a couple of essays. Look, it's the GIMP. I think it's a lot of fun. I highly recommend checking it out. I need to watch this to see if the transfer is actually good or not. But this is from Vinegar Syndrome, and I've talked about them plenty of times on the channel. They used to be a softcore porn distribution company, and then they decided to get into like cult films and stuff like that. And now they just pick the weirdest things or the weirdest movies that nobody usually would give it 2 shits about, except for people my age. 4K restorations. You're going to see a couple of them coming up later. There's some stuff where they picked some movies where you're like, what were they thinking? But I'm super glad it exists. It is very 80s. Remember watching the Beastmaster on TV? Dope packaging, though. Yep. Remember seeing the box at Blockbuster would always pass on. I would recommend picking it up. It is very 80s-tastic, but it's a lot of fun. It's a really fun take on a Conan adventure movie. And then there were multiple sequels to that, too, but they all went direct to video. There was one that had Kari Wurr in it, and it's not very good. And then they made a third movie that had the Wish version of Sonya Blade from Mortal Kombat Annihilation as the love interest in it, and it's terrible. And then I know, kind of starting to wheeze. I know TJ commented on this during the recent pickup video where I talked about this. And that is my 3-movie collection of the Beverly Hills Cop trilogy, which is now obsolete as well. But since Netflix does not ever seem to release their stuff on physical media, I'm pretty sure this is as close as we're going to get to a complete set. I love the first 2 Beverly Hills Cop movies. They are 2 of my favorite movies from my youth. Like I said, if a movie was rated R when I was a kid, as long as it wasn't a horror movie, my parents did not care if we watched it or not in my family, me and my brother. Like Rambo, Commando, anything with Arnold in it, Terminator, Beverly Hills Cop. We learned so many new words watching these movies, guys. I'm telling you. But the first movie is a legit good, cop movie, and it's funny as hell. You can tell that Eddie Murphy is ad-libbing pretty much all of his jokes, and they're all they're all funny. The characters that he interacts with are great. The thing with Damon Wayans, you go ahead, you take them bananas. That shit just cracks me up because it feels almost real. And I like the fact that it's, him trying to do one of his friends right. And then we got the sequel, which is definitely more of an action-heavy movie because Tony Scott directed it, and that's pretty much all he was doing was action movies. And it's very amped up music video style compared to the first one. It has a completely different feel, but it is still, I think, just as fun. The characters are all still likable. I love it. I love both of them. I can watch the 2 of them on a continuous loop, and the 4th one, I would say, because the 4th one is really fun. But then there's the 3rd one. So, never saw the first 2 movies in the theater. I did see the last 10 minutes of part 2 in the theater because my parents went and saw it at the Dollar Theater, and me and my brother went and saw something completely different. And whenever one of our movies would end before the others, if our movie was still going when my parents' movie ended, they would come in the theater and sit with us and watch the rest of ours, and vice versa. And I remember our movie ended first, and we went and watched the last 10 minutes of Beverly Hills Cop 2 in the theater with them. And I remember seeing the whole thing with Jurgen Prochnow getting shot in the head in his car as he's trying to run Foley over at the end of the movie and all that. And the whole fuck you thing with the commissioner and Rosewood. But didn't know what was going on because I hadn't seen the rest of the movie. But because I never saw any of these movies in the theater, and I was such a huge fan of them, when the 3rd movie came out, which was in 94, so I was already graduated from high school, I was super excited. I'm I'm finally going to be able to see a Beverly Hills Cop movie in the theater. This is going to be great. So me and a bunch of friends, including an ex-girlfriend of mine who decided to tag along for some reason, went and saw the 3rd one opening night. And because I was such a huge fan, it was kind of the same thing I've talked about happening with Mortal Kombat Annihilation, where I was in such huge denial about the movie. I remember I went and saw this movie, I do believe, 3 times in the theater before I realized how much I hated it. Saw it the first night, and me and my friends were all like, that was the greatest thing ever. Yes! Went and saw it with my brother a second time. And my brother was kind of like, yeah, that was all right. And I was like, yeah, it's not as funny as I remember it being when I saw it that first time with all my other friends and then that girl. And then I went and saw it again with my brother. And the 3rd time I saw it, I was like, why am I doing this to myself? This is not funny. This sucks. It is so bad in so many ways. It is just not funny. And I never gave it the time of day again. Until, the Blu-ray set that I bought. And I watched it again, and I was like, yeah, this is still not good. It is just really badly made. It is not funny. The plot sucks. It's just, I don't know what they were. It was like a cash grab, if you ask me. It was really, really bad. So, not a fan of the 3rd one. I do like the 4th one quite a bit. It's not great, but it's fun. It kind of brings me back to the feeling I get when I watch part 1 and 2, which makes it good for me. But basically got this for the first 2 films. But because I'm a completionist, I had to get it because the 3rd one's in there. Definitely was we're getting the band back together deal. Hell yeah. Yeah, I like the fourth one. It's like, I wish it wasn't like just a retread of other things and callbacks and member berries things, but for the most part, I really enjoyed it. And I've watched that one, I think, 3 times since it came out. Next up, one of my favorite Coen Brothers movies. This is The Big Lebowski with Jeff Bridges and John Goodman. This is one of the Universal... What are they called? The Universal... Oh, there's like a name for these things. It's like a universal collection or something. I can't remember what it's called. Does it even say anything on the packaging? No, not even. That's some bullshit. Did not even realize that there was this collection happening, because from what I understood when I learned about the other movies in this collection, that you could only get them on the Groove website, which is the Universal Studios direct-to-consumers, physical media site. But I got this on Amazon. I pre-ordered it through Amazon, so maybe it started off there, and then they released a bunch of other ones. So probably my favorite Coen Brothers movie. This one cracks me up. It is just full of so many fun one-liners. It's like a Philip Marlowe detective movie, but as if Philip Marlowe was a dumbass, and he just kind of stumbles across the answers to all the questions that we're all looking for. And I absolutely love it. I saw this in the theater at the Dollar Theater, because at first I was kind of questioning if I wanted to see it or not, because I thought it looked kind of stupid when it came to the trailers. But I really did love Fargo, the previous movie that the Coen Brothers made. So eventually I was like, I'll just go see it at the Dollar Theater. And I laughed. I talked about this before. I laughed so hard at one scene in this movie that I almost died. So when the dude is driving back from, I don't remember what, I think he went and saw Julianne Moore's character, and he's driving in his car down an alley, and he's smoking a joint, and he's listening to Clearance, and he's like banging the ceiling of his car to the music, to the beat, and he goes to flick the joint butt out the window, but he left the window up, and it bounces back into his lap, and he starts screaming in that high-pitched scream of his, and they show the inside of the outside of the alley, and you see the car go down the alley and rams a dumpster and jumps up in the air. I don't know why, but that set me off so hard. I could not, I was on my knees on the floor of the theater, gasping for breath. I was laughing so hard. I could not stop laughing. And the friend I was with was just looking at me like, are you okay? And I had tears streaming down my face, and I was gagging. I was laughing so hard. That did it for me for some reason. And it's been one of my favorites ever since. I almost die watching a movie. I love it now. It also has a certificate of authenticity. There's only 5,000 editions of all of these Universal Legends collections, or whatever they're called. My edition is 2267 out of 5,000. You get the movie. You get a booklet with essays and behind-the-scenes tidbits. You get a bunch of lobby cards, which I'm not going to open. They're still sealed. And you also get a replica film cell from the movie. Let me see if I can get it so you can actually... So you can see that it's the scene from the dream sequence where the dude and Julianne Moore, dressed as a Valkyrie, are bowling, which is kind of cool. Each of these sets comes with this. The movie came out in March 6th, 1998, which is pretty rad. I got a frame from the movie. That is rad AF. Anyway, absolutely love it. Love it, love it, love it. There's only been 3 movies that have made me laugh that hard, and I don't own one of them because I don't like the movie, but there was one scene that cracked me up. But the other one is Kung Pao, Enter the Fist, which I don't own either. So here's the spoiler. This one arrived at the beginning of the month, and I have not talked about it in a recent pickup video yet, so you're going to see it again at the end of the month. But Shout Factory released a 4K box set of Bill and Ted's Most Triumphant Trilogy. So I've only had a Blu-ray. I had a Blu-ray set that had the first 2 movies in it, and then the third movie got released separately by a different company. Eventually, Shout Factory got the rights to the third movie once the original company who released its license ran out, and now they've released it as a trilogy box set in 4K. Absolutely had to get it. I love this trilogy. Some are better than others, but this has Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, and Bill and Ted Face the Music, which came out right in the height of the pandemic. I was actually planning on going to see Face the Music on my birthday. I actually had friends come over for my birthday, and the intention was, let's go see the new Bill and Ted movie together. Only problem was, it was playing at only one theater, relatively close. That was relatively close to me, relatively speaking, which was at an hour and 10 minutes away, I think, and no one was willing to drive an hour and 10 minutes there and back again, because they're like, the trip would be longer than the movie we're going to watch. So we just got an unboxing. So I want to see what the packaging looks like. So that's the new outer packaging, which I think is pretty rad. It's mostly imagery from the first film. And then on the back, we have mostly imagery from the second film. And not much from the third, which is whatever. But all three films here in 4K. Saw the original in the theater opening weekend. I remember it was one of those movies that was constantly being delayed. I remember we were planning on seeing it this one weekend, and then it got delayed by like 4 or 5 months or something like that. So we ended up going to see it opening weekend at the local theater, and did not know who any of the people in this movie were. I didn't even know who George Carlin was because I didn't really follow stand-up comedy. But I kind of recognized Keanu Reeves because there was a television, I think it was on like the Wonderful World of Disney or something. My mom, who was a huge musical fan, taped this musical movie that they made with Drew Barrymore in it of Babes in Toyland, and Keanu Reeves was in that. And I remember watching that with her, and then go and see Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. I'm like, I think that guy was in Babes in Toyland, but I didn't know who the fuck he was. But the movie ended up surprising me. I laughed a lot, gave you some historical stuff, and I really liked the characters. They were really fun and entertaining. So when the second movie came out, Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, I went and saw it opening night at the drive-in. It was me, my brother, my mother, and my friend Gary, who I talk about quite a bit, being like the gaming prodigy for the NES that I mentioned quite a bit. And I got so wired on Starbursts, like I ate an entire bag of Starbursts, that I was like running around like a chicken with my head cut off around the damn minivan we came in. I was like running circles around it, and my friend Gary basically clotheslined me, threw me into a lounge chair, that like a fold-out lounge chair that we brought so we could sit outside of the van and watch the movie, laid me out on that and tied me down to it with a blanket. And it was the weirdest, because I remember my mom kind of like seeing it happening through the rearview mirror and going like, what? And Gary's just like, it had to happen. Because I was so freaking hyper and annoying. But where the first movie is the characters like jumping back and forth through time to gather up historical figures so they can do a report to pass high school. This one is Bill and Ted get murdered by future robot versions of themselves, and they kind of like bounce back and forth between heaven and hell and find a new crew of people, including Death himself, played by William Sadler, and he is fantastic in this movie. He is so funny. Like, you damn straight, that it. And at the end of the movie, they are supposedly becoming the characters they're supposed to be, where their music is going to save the world. But when the third movie came around decades later, like I said, this came out like in 2021, that didn't quite happen the way it was explained to us. They did that performance. They had learned all these skills by going back or forward in time, taking music lessons, and then coming back, and you see that they're going to do this thing that's going to save the world, and they kind of got cold feet. And now they're like, middle-aged, and they're regretting it. And there's still that destiny that they have to fulfill, but they are kind of reluctant to do it. And now they have kids of their own and all that. Their kids are kind of suffering because of it. And it's like them seeing alternate versions of themselves through time if they made different choices. So it's like a multiverse movie also. And it does wrap things up a little too quickly, if you ask me, when they finally like get their shit together. Like, okay, guys, we got to take this seriously. We got to do the thing. And it's like within 3 minutes, it's like wrapped up. And it's like, huh? It's like, did they run out of money? Because I'm confused. But it is still pretty fun. The two, Keanu Reeves and Alex Winters still have great chemistry as adults. And they're still super fun to watch. And while this is definitely the last movie they are making in this series, I could have done with more because they are still fun and relevant. So super thrilled that I got this. Next up is the Bourne Complete Collection. This has 5 Bourne movies in it. So this is one of those things where I went to Best Buy before they got rid of all their movies and bought the big box set of this. And we're talking a big box set that was even thicker than the Bill and Ted one. We're talking it's probably like this thick, that had all 5 movies in it. Each movie had its own like Blu-ray case like this, but picture 5 of them, right? And then I buy it, and then a week later they announce that there's a slim version coming out. I'm like, that's why they discounted it at Best Buy. They were trying to get rid of those to make room for this. So I brought it back, got my money back, and then pre-ordered this off of Amazon because I need to save space whenever I can. So there are 5 Bourne movies. You got Bourne Identity, Bourne Supremacy, Bourne Ultimatum, Bourne Legacy, and then Jason Bourne. I like the first 3. Bourne Identity, Bourne... I just said it. Bourne Supremacy, Bourne Ultimatum. Super fun action movies. They kind of inspired the new Bond movies also, but they kind of moved away from that, I think. Matt Damon is a pretty good action star. I like the fact that the way he thinks on his feet during fights, like he can use anything as a weapon in a room. A pencil, a mug, a towel, whatever. I read the book that the first movie is based on, and it changes things considerably, but I did not care because it was written during the 70s, and it contained a villain who was a real-life terrorist that was just kind of being used as a character in the book. So it wouldn't have made sense anyway. So I'm glad they kind of changed it and created kind of this weird lore on top of it. Bourne Legacy, it's okay. It's the one where they brought in Hawkeye. What's his damn name? God damn, I can never remember that guy's name. Shit. Frickin' Hawkeye. Guy got run over by a snowplow. God damn it. Anyway, where it's like a side story that kind of takes place concurrently to Ultimatum with another character from the program that Bourne came from. And then we have like a final sequel, which is Jason Bourne, which is kind of happened because Rambo and Rocky all got like a final sequel, so they did that too. And it feels really unnecessary. Like, we didn't need to have it. But they're fun action movies, so I can't complain. And here's another one of the Lionsgate Steelbooks, Cabin in the Woods, one of my favorite horror movies, very meta horror movie. It kind of makes fun of horror conventions as well as honors them. It's very cool. Joss Whedon he wrote part of the script. And here's one of the ones that actually does something with the artwork. So here it looks like a bunch of people standing in the middle of the woods. And you lift this up and you're like, oh, truth revealed. What's going on underneath the ground? Oh, that's what's manipulating everybody. And the same thing for the back. God damn it. I hate the way sometimes these things work. On the back, it looks like a elevator door with like a hand peeking through. And then when you lift this up, no, you see all the bad things that are waiting in there. So starts off with a bunch of like 5 college students going to a cabin in the woods for spring break. And they all seem very well adjusted and normal. But once they get there, their personalities all start to change. And they start becoming the cliches of every character from a horror movie. One becomes the slut. One becomes the aggressive jock. One becomes the stoner. He was a stoner before they got there. One becomes like the virginal girl, and one becomes the nice guy. And it's like, where did that come from? And then all of a sudden, things start showing up to kill them. And it's like, where did this all come from? Turns out there's something going on where it's all being manipulated from afar for reasons. And like I said, it honors and also makes fun of horror conventions. And I absolutely love it. It is so good. Chris Hemsworth, first time I ever saw him in anything that wasn't Star Trek. You know, he did the very beginning of the first Star Trek reboot, but it's like the first starring role I saw him in, and he was really, really good. Absolutely fantastic horror movie. It's super fun to watch and very rewatchable. Got this either last month or the month before. It's the China O'Brien 1 and 2. So one side's China O'Brien 1, other side China O'Brien 2. Box set from, like I said, Vinegar Syndrome, releasing the weird shit. These are direct-to-video martial arts movies starring Cynthia Rothrock, who is an absolutely fantastic martial artist who transitioned into being an actor. I need to watch these again. I haven't watched them since the 90s. But awesome cover artwork, slip artwork. These are both directed by Robert Klaus, who directed Enter the Frickin' Dragon. Ended up like transitioning into being a direct-to-video schlock director. But these are hardly schlock. These are actually really well-made and fun kung fu movies, starring a genuinely talented martial artist and a decent actor at that. Yeah, absolutely had to have that. This is a little bit thicker than your standard 4K box or case, so I have this with the box sets. But it is the Close Encounters of the Third Kind. What is it, the 40th anniversary edition? And I was kind of hesitant to buy this because the Blu-ray set that I had 3 different cuts of this movie on it, and I did not know if this 4K version did the same thing. So this has the original cut on Blu-ray. Is that Blu-ray? Yeah, the original cut of the movie on Blu-ray, the theatrical cut from the 70s. Then we have the... Oh, no, I'm sorry. These are branching discs. So each cut of the movie is on here. So, yeah. 3 kinds of Close Encounters. Where is it? Well, not going to tell me now. So I remember looking this up on Amazon, and it said it has all 3 cuts. And I think you have to pick which one you want to watch in the menus, and it branches depending on which version you're watching. So you have one disc that's all special features, then you have the Blu-ray version, and you have the 4K version. So there's 3 cuts. There's the theatrical cut. There is the special edition, which was the one that was shown on national television when the movie premiered on like ABC or whatever, like the Monday Night Movie or whatever the hell they call it, or Sunday Night Movie, where the company forced Spielberg to go back and shoot new footage that shows the inside of the alien ship when Richard Dreyfuss enters the alien ship at the end of the movie. In the theatrical cut, he gets in the ship and it leaves, and it's over. In this one, they're like, no, here's a couple $1 million. Go and shoot like this interior spaceship thing to extend the movie a little bit. And there's like other shots that were inserted after the fact of like deleted footage and some newly shot footage. You can tell when it's new because Richard Dreyfuss's hair looks a little bit different. And some of the makeup is different because he gets burned early on in the movie and half of his face is red. Sometimes it just looks weird. And it kind of ruins the mystery of the end of the movie. Then there is like the director's cut, like the official director's cut one where he took things that he liked from the reshoots and the stuff from the theatrical version and made like his final cut also. And this has all 3 versions of the movie on there. I prefer the final cut version. It actually feels like a more well-rounded movie. A lot of fun. So aliens start like popping up here and there across the world, and it feels like a disaster movie where it's like following a bunch of different groups of people as they're discovering what's like these alien signs that there's alien visitations. But then it ends up really just following 2 people who are being drawn to like this big event that's going to happen involving the aliens. And it's really, really fun. I like it quite a bit. I went and saw that before they released the 4K on home video. They released the restored 4K version theatrically for one night only, and I went and saw it. And I was like, I hope they have all 3 cuts on that 4K because I won't buy it otherwise. This is a little bit thicker than that's what she said. What? Oh, this means something? This means something. This is important. Here's another one of, this isn't by Lionsgate, but I think that Paramount took cues from Lionsgate doing like these special slipcover things for their steelbooks. So we got Cloverfield, the big return of found footage horror movies that kind of started with Blair Witch Project in 99, kind of died off, and then came back in the mid to late 2000s with this. J.J. Abrams directed this, and it's fun. I like it. But on rewatches, I don't think it's nearly as fun as I remembered it being. But the whole idea is it's being everything with about this big kaiju monster trashing New York City is being filmed by this group of friends who have like a handy cam. And why they are running away and going like, yeah, I'm running for my life, but I got to film this thing too, guys. It's for posterity. You know, it's kind of dumb. But the artwork looks like the poster art through the lens of the DV cam. And then you take it off and you see that what's really being filmed is like destruction. It's a fun movie. Don't get me wrong. It's just not nearly as good as I remembered it being. But I enjoy it. It was very effective for the time. Here is a box set from Arrow Video, and that is the Conan Chronicles. This has Conan the Barbarian and Conan the Destroyer. Arnold Schwarzenegger. I watch these all the time as a kid. Once again, probably should never have watched Conan the Barbarian as a kid. It is a hard R-rated movie. There are beheadings and maulings and just geysers of blood shooting out of people. And my parents are like, that's cool for the kids. Haha, The second movie, Destroyer, is more kid-friendly, which is why Arnold didn't want to make any more movies in this franchise, because he did not like the direction they were going. These are based on a series of books that have been around forever. There are tons of them. The first one is definitely the better of the two. It's also the movie that got Arnold noticed. I remember there was big fights between the director, John Milius, who was fighting for Arnold, and then the guy who was producing it, Dino De Laurentiis, saying, like, no one can understand what this guy is saying. He is not an actor. We can't cast him at all. And he actually, like, Milius said to De Laurentiis, then find me someone as big as him that can act, and I'll hire him instead. And De Laurentiis was like, you got a point, hire him. And like I said, it made Arnold's career. This was like his first big movie, and he became a superstar right after, because he did Terminator and then Part 2. And it's really, really fun. And it's really gory, like I said, but I absolutely love it. And it has the movie on Blu-ray, the movie on 4K, and a disc full of extras, and a ton of lobby cards that have to do with both films. James Earl Jones is the villain, Thulsa Doom. There's a transformation scene where he turns into a giant snake, which is pretty scary if you're a little kid. Just shots from the film. The big scene where Arnold's practicing with his sword. This is the hell with you, Crom, you son of a bitch. And then that's not. And then the rest of these are Conan the Destroyer. You got Grace Jones. You got Olivia d'Abo. You got Wilt Chamberlain. Of all people, Wilt Chamberlain. You got Arnold. You got Sarah Douglas from Superman 2 and Arnold. And another shot of Arnold and his abs. Like I said, the second movie is PG rated and is geared more for kids. Not to say that it is not gory and adult, because another movie that will probably get reclassified if they decide to do that as probably a PG-13 movie, because it is still extremely violent and gory, and there is some nudity in it. Also got posters. You got the original one sheet for Conan the Barbarian and a shot of Arnold. And Conan the Destroyer, and another shot of Arnold. And this big, thick book that is all about the making of both films. Interviews with pretty much everybody that was involved that was willing to talk about it. And it's obviously a lot of people. I like the second one for reasons, because Grace Jones is actually really good in it. She plays this, I don't know if she's an Amazon. I want to say she's like an Amazon, who at the beginning of the movie, she's been captured by these villagers and is being tormented. They've tied her to the ground, and they gave her like a stick, and she's like trying to whack people with it, but they're like just out of reach. And she's like frustrated beyond belief. And Conan rides by on his horse, and he's watching this happen, and you can see he's very disapproving of it. And the thing is, when everybody sees Conan stop to watch, everyone that's tormenting her stops. And Grace Jones plants the stick in the ground and just looks at Conan, and the look on her face is disheartening. She's this close to crying, and you can see she's scared because she thinks she's going to die. She's this close to crying because she's frustrated at the situation she's in, and she's also kind of asking him for help with her eyes. And I was like, I never thought Grace Jones had it in her to act with out saying something, because I never thought she was a great actress. I saw View to a Kill, and I didn't think. I mean, she's fun to watch, but she's not a great actress by any means. But That scene, I was like, this is way better than I remember being as a kid. And that part like really made me take notice. I'm like, I need to watch this movie a little bit closer. And it's fun. It's gory as all hell. It's a comic book movie, though, compared to the first movie, which tries to feel kind of real. According to the librarian, don't you know the Dewey Decimal System? Next up is another one of the Lionsgate Steelbooks, and that is Crank. I love the first one. The second one is kind of like overkill, if you ask me. We didn't need a second one. It just kind of feels like it's trying to be the first one, but 2 times as much. But I'm a huge fan of Jason Statham, so saw this opening weekend and I absolutely loved it. I knew nothing about it. I was just like, oh, look, Jason Statham's in a new movie. Let's go see it. And then I walked out of the movie theater and I'm like, that was like watching Grand Theft Auto, the movie. But you pull the artwork off, see, like it looks like Jason Statham looking all pissy, and there's like guns behind him. And you pull this off, and yep, that's like his X-ray, and you can see the thing with his heart. So the whole point of this is Statham's a hitman who is dating a girl, and he tells her that he's a video game designer by trade when he's actually like a really well-paid hitman. And somebody that he has wronged has broken into his house and injected him with a drug where if his heart rate falls below a certain amount of beats per minute, he's going to die. So he has to constantly do things to keep his heart rate up in order to find the person who has injected him and kill him. And like the things he's willing to do, like electrocute himself, have sex in public, inject himself with like more adrenaline than any body could possibly take. The scene where he does that in the hospital is, I think, one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Another scene where almost like I laughed so hard I couldn't breathe, where he's like in a hospital and he's in like one of those gowns that they give you where the back is open, and he steals like one of the carts that the nurses carry around that have all the different medications and gauze pads and everything in it, and he takes like all this adrenaline out, and he goes in an elevator that is taking him to the top floor so he can get to the street, and he like injects himself with it, and you just see him inject himself with it, and presses down the plungers, and then they show the outside of the hospital, and the elevator doors open. And it's like there's like a beat, like the elevator door is open, and there's a beat. Also, need to see Jason Statham come bolting out like the Flash, going like, "Arr!" And it's like watching a Roadrunner cartoon. He's like, "Arr!" As he's running past the camera. And I died. I freaking died watching that. I was laughing so hard. Statham isn't known for doing like comedy. He's known for just being an ass kicker on screen. I was dying. It's a lot of fun, and it does feel like a video game movie. Don't you know the Dewey Decimal System? Next up, we have the Nolan Dark Knight trilogy. So it's Batman Begins, Dark Knight, and Dark Knight Rises. I love this trilogy. I know a lot of people have problems with the third movie. I don't. I understand why certain things are left the way they are. I understand why certain details are left out because it probably wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. But you know what? This is a comic book. Superman got lightning powers at some point. That's a comic book about an alien who can fly and shoot lasers from his eyes. I don't think about it too much. But these are all well-made movies, well-acted, well-directed. I like everything about it. I love the cast. I know everyone complains about Christian Bale's Batman voice. I don't care. He might have throat cancer. Not my problem. But I like all of them. I do think that of the 3, Dark Knight Rises is probably my least favorite, but I still like it quite a bit. But like the whole thing about like, how did he get back to Gotham without anyone noticing? He's Bruce Wayne. He's got resources. Who gives a shit? How did he escape the nuclear blast at the end? He probably jumped out of the plane and went underwater. Who cares? It's a comic book. But I like Dark Knight's probably my favorite of the 3. Dark Knight Rises is probably my least favorite of the 3. But like I said, I still really like it. I really liked, I did not think I would ever in a million years like, what's her freaking face? Anne Hathaway as Catwoman. I never in a million years. I was like, the Princess Diaries chick? Are you kidding me right now? Watch the movie and I'm like, she's fucking perfect. She is great. I love that scene that they showed in the original trailer where Bruce Wayne is dancing with Selena Kyle at that ball, and she's like, "You better batten down the hatches because hell is coming to Gotham." I was like, I felt that. You could tell just how angry her character is supposed to be. I love that. Next up, we have one of my favorite horror movies of all time, and that is the original Dawn of the Dead by George Romero, the one from 1977 or 70. I think it's 78. And I ended up having to get this from, what's the name of the company? Is this Second Sight? Yeah, Second Sight Films. This is the limited edition that comes with all the different cuts of the movie. So there was the U.S. theatrical cut, which is still the one that you want to watch. Let me see here. The theatrical cut is on disc 1. The extended Cannes cut, the Cannes Film Festival cut, which is also pretty good. Then you have the Argento cut, which you do not want to watch because it went from being a 2-hour and 20-minute movie to being like 85 minutes long. So the thing is, when this movie became a huge hit in the U.S., and for a movie that was unrated, or released unrated, it was a huge success. Like, that was unheard of kind of back in the day. If a movie didn't have a rating, they usually didn't make a lot of money. But when it became popular, Romero sold the rights of the movie to Dario Argento, who was a famed horror director from Italy, and gave him the rights to do whatever he wanted with it over there. And Argento recut the whole freaking movie. He basically cut all the plot out and just made it gore scene after gore scene after gore scene. But it was super popular in Italy to the point where there was a subgenre born, because the movie over here is Dawn of the Dead. Over there it was called Zombie, Z-O-M-B-I. Then all of a sudden there are sequels to Zombie. There's Zombie 1. There's another movie called Zombie. Then there's Zombie 2, 3, and 4. I think a 5. And then it became a subgenre. It was like these rip-off zombie movies that Argento basically created with that recut. It's not good compared to the other ones. I'd definitely say to watch the extended Romero cut, but this one is the zombie apocalypse started in Night of the Living Dead. Here it's like in full swing. There are still plenty of people left alive, but you can see that things are starting to look a little hopeless. Like there's no way we can really stop. So there's this news reporter, her boyfriend, and 2 military policemen steal a helicopter, and then they're trying to get out of the main town. What is it like? I want to say it was probably New Jersey. They're trying to get out of downtown New Jersey and find some place safe to land and to live. And they end up running out of gas at a mall that is abandoned, like a big ass shopping mall, and they basically commandeer the mall, block it off, and it becomes their home. And even though they've got all this space, they've got all the the things they would ever need, they're not sharing with anybody aside from the 4 of them. And boredom starts to set in, and stupid things start to happen. And then all of a sudden, a biker gang realizes that these people are hogging this entire plot of land for themselves. We're going to fight for it. And it turns into this big epic thing, which is more about the human versus than the zombie stuff. It's fantastic. It's great social commentary. I absolutely love it. One of the best zombie movies I think ever made. But the remake is not bad. The remake by Zack Snyder is actually quite good. And it's just a different take on that. Next, we have the 4K of the Dazed and Confused box set from Criterion Collection. This is basically a love letter to the 70s. It's about a bunch of high school graduates, right as they graduate, and the things they do during one night. It's no plot. It's basically just a bunch of characters you follow around. Some you like, some you dislike. But the big thing about this movie is it's the soundtrack, which is all classic 70s rock and pop music. And the cast. The cast is a bunch of people who were nobodies at the time who ended up becoming huge stars. You got Ben Affleck. You've got Matthew McConaughey. You've got Mila Jovovich. Jason London. Let me see. Who else? Rory Cochrane. Parker Posey. Let me see. Who else? Is there a cast? Oh, Anthony Rapp, who's on Star Trek. Let me see. Did they tell you here? Yeah, they don't really have everybody listed, but it is a who's who of people who ended up becoming massive Hollywood stars. Ben Affleck actually broke his ankle making the movie, and you could see it happen on screen too, which is messed up. There's a scene where he is threatening somebody with a baseball bat, and he kind of like swings it around a little bit, and you can see his ankle like twist as he's like waving it around. And he broke his ankle, but he stayed in character, even though he had just broke his ankle on camera. He stayed in character until they yelled cut. Then he went, "God damn!" Oh man, it's a fun movie. It's like just a little slice of life kind of thing of the 70s, kind of like the way American Graffiti was the same kind of thing about high school in the 50s. But it's a lot of fun. I like it. Next up, we have the Death and Return of Superman. This movie was split into half. So I have this in the box sets because it is part 1 and part 2 put together. And this is a retelling of the whole death of Superman and then the resurrection of Superman. So Superman fights Doomsday, dies in the process. They both die in the process. But then in the wake of that, a bunch of other people claiming to want to be the new Superman show up in Metropolis. So you've got the Eradicator, who is like this alien being. You've got this, I can't remember what they're called. There's like the cyborg Superman, who is like half robot, half human. You've got Superboy, and then you've got Steel. But something's off about some of them. And that's the whole thing. But Superman turns out to not really be dead. Like he just kind of went into like a coma to repair himself. And when he comes back, I'm Superman, but I'm a little different. It was a really big event. I remember there was the thing also that ruined comic books for a lot of people because you have no idea how big the Death of Superman comic book event was. Like lines out the doors of comic book stores that never had lines before. Like everyone and their mom wanted a copy of that issue. And then they reverse it eventually, like less than a year later. Like Superman's not really dead, guys. And it kind of ruined comic books for a lot of people. But it's still a pretty good story. They do change a couple of things in it, but it's still pretty good. It's one of those animated DC movies that go direct to video. They're doing another one right now, which is the oh god, what is it? It's like a 3-parter on top of it. Let me double check. Online stores, Amazon. 4K DC EU. Oh, maybe not EU. DC animated. Crisis on Infinite Earths. So it's like their big multiverse storyline. They broke it up into 3 films, and I'm waiting for that 3-film set to come out before I buy it. I'm not buying them separately and all that. Next up, we have a awesome Jackie Chan movie, and that is Dragons Forever. I got this from, I think it's 88 Films, which I think is in England as well. This one has the 3 brothers in it. So Jackie Chan went to acting/martial arts school with 2 other dudes that became best friends. So it's Jackie Chan, Sammo Hung, which I'm pretty sure a lot of you have heard of, and also Yoon Bu. They kind of made a bunch of movies together, then kind of splintered off and did their own thing for a while, but they would come back in various capacities in other people's movies that they were working on. And this is one of the ones where they are all together, and it's really, really fun. I like it a lot. I need to watch it again. I have not seen this in probably decades, but I really enjoyed it. So when it came out on 4K and in this big-ass box set, which I should probably open to see what's inside, that would be good, wouldn't you think? Needle nose pliers, because yes. Open up, my gosh. Open up. There we go. This is actually going on quite long. I should have probably not talked about this many movies. But then again, like I said, I can always talk about movies for great lengths of time. So we got a really hard case cover. You got the movie on 4K. Comes with some lobby cards. Another big-ass book about the making of the films. and the poster art, the original poster art, and the new poster art that is on the box. So that's the newly commissioned art, and then this was the original poster, which is very, I think, shitty. I never really liked the original like Hong Kong poster art. It always looks silly to me a lot of the times compared to what we would get here in the U.S. Get in there. So there's that. And next up we have, I might just end it here then. So then we're going to talk about, I'll end it after this next one. Dragon Slayer. This is one of the Steelbooks, one of the few Steelbooks released by Paramount. But this is a co-Paramount and Disney movie. And here's another one where Disney was doing that dark thing in the the late 70s and early 80s, where they were just kind of like, we want to start making more adult movies. We want to start doing this whole PG thing we keep hearing about. But they didn't. They would always get like cold feet. You know, they would release it, but they wouldn't be a lot of fanfare. So this one they ended up passing off to Paramount and co-developing it with them so that their name wouldn't be on it. But it's a fantasy movie about a young magician who, along with his teacher, who was like a master magician, who is definitely too old to be taking on this battle. This dragon has been like destroying a kingdom bit by bit and demanding sacrifices made to it of young people in order to not continue to destroy the kingdom. So the people from that kingdom go looking for like this powerful magician to kill the dragon for them. They find him, but he's definitely way too old to be doing it. So he ends up having his student do it, played by Peter McNichol. And he like starts off really kind of nervous and not very good, but like as the movie goes on, he starts to really improve and really comes into his own. But they kind of cop out at the end, I think. But another one with pretty rad artwork underneath. The dragon in this movie is called Vermithrax, which I think is one of the coolest freaking names ever. I love that artwork too. He gets a shield made of dragon scales because dragon scales, turns out, are fireproof. And he gets a magical spear as well. And this movie is gory as hell. There is a couple of scenes of people being burned alive. There is a scene of a person that has been sacrificed to the dragon getting their leg bitten off by the dragon. And it is quite gross when you see it going on. There's a couple of murders that are kind of graphic. So, like, it's not something you would expect to come from Disney, which is why they passed it off to Paramount to release. But I think it's a lot of fun, and it still holds up. The stop motion or go motion that they used for Vermithrax still holds up. It looks fantastic. And is this the last one? Yeah, the last one I'm going to talk about tonight is the original Dune that I got from Arrow Video. This is the one from 1984 that was a huge box office bomb when compared to the modern remake of Dune, which don't get me wrong, I love that one too. I do have a very big soft spot for this because I was saying earlier how when we'd go see movies as a kid at that dollar theater we would always go to, if our movie ended before my parents' movie, we would go and sit in their theater and watch whatever was left of the movie they were watching before we'd all leave, or they'd come into our theater if their movie ended first. So my parents went and saw Dune. My brother and I went and saw something else. Our movie ended first, but the thing is, Dune ended up being such a long movie that we ended up watching basically more than half the film. So we ended up sitting in there and watching it, not knowing what the hell was going on, but I was like, the pretty colors, the cool spaceships, the little pew-pew guns. This is awesome. This is like Star Wars on dope. So I was really excited to watch it when it came to home video, and man, did I. I watched it over and over and over again. Did it make a whole lot of sense? Not really. You watch this as an adult, and it's like half this movie, or maybe more than half, probably like 75% of this movie's dialogue is just exposition to make things make sense because they didn't have time to actually let you figure it out on your own. So the movie comes with a bunch of lobby cards. So you got Paul Atreides fighting Fade, which is played by Sting. Got a Fremen fight. You've got Paul before he finds Shah-Hulud. You got Chani and Paul making out. Going to make some babies. Got Paul practicing with his weirding modules. You got Patrick Stewart in the back there playing Gurney Halleck, played by Josh Brolin in the remakes. The movie is technically very well made. It looks great. It sounds great. It has a great soundtrack by Toto. I like the actors in it. It's just that there was no room for anything other than constantly trying to push the plot forward. There's no real character development. There's nothing like that going on, where there's plenty of that in the new ones because it was split into two films. It needed room to breathe. So, like I said, it has flaws, but I think it's still a fun movie to watch. I like the characters, even though you don't really know much about them by the end of the movie. Other than these guys are good and these other guys are bad, and they are fighting over a drug. And that's pretty much it. I like it, and that's also mostly nostalgia because, like I said, I used to watch this all the time when it was on cable, watch it on video all the time. My dad made a copy of the tape, and we'd watch it all the time, so I have a soft spot for it. The movie also comes with the poster, which is the new artwork commissioned for the movie, as well as the original theatrical artwork, which I think is pretty fun, and also a giant book that is nothing but essays about the making of the film. So there is also an extended cut of this, which for some reason was originally broadcast on the Disney Channel. So the real movie, like the theatrical cut of the movie, is just over 2 hours. The extended cut is I think pushing 3. And a friend of mine would always tell me that's the better version, the extended cut, because I guess he watched it on the Disney Channel. He's like, "Oh my God, there's more of the movie, so I like it more." I'm like, "All right." So it eventually got released on DVD. I bought it, I watched it, and I absolutely hated it. I hated it. The first half hour of the movie is a bunch of really dumb-looking concept art with a narrator just doing more exposition that does not apply to anything you're going to see in the movie. It's basically just the stuff that had to be left out of the book to make the movie make sense in the runtime that they were given. It's all this stuff that you don't need to know because they don't bring it up ever again in the film. And then there are little scenes sprinkled in here and there of deleted scenes, but the special effects are never finished. So when people have that glowing blue eyes after they take the water of life, or they've been on the planet long enough that their eyes are turned blue, it alternates between no blue or no glow and some glow. No glow, some glow. And it's really distracting. You're oh, he's got the blue eyes here. And then the next shot he doesn't. And then it goes back to him having it again, because all this stuff was cut out of the movie. But there are more character moments, but it doesn't matter because it's not much you're given. But I just think it slowed the movie down. It made it even more confusing because, like I said, all that information they throw at you during this prologue thing, you're waiting for it to have some sort of a payoff in this new version of the movie, and there is none. So it's what was the point of even bringing it up? So it's confusing, and I just think it made the movie bad. But I do still, like I said, have a soft spot for the theatrical cut, so I had to get this. My only issue with the transfer is it does look good the majority of the time, but there's a bunch of scenes in the desert, especially the scene where Paul Atreides is reunited with Gurney for the first time since the beginning of the movie. And they hug, and Patrick Stewart's going "You young pup," and all that, where for some reason they amped up the vibrance or the saturation of the colors, and all of the characters whose faces are exposed look like they have the worst sunburn you've ever seen in their life. They look like tomatoes. And I'm that can't have been what was originally planned. Somebody was messing around with a dial they really shouldn't have. So like I said, it's really distracting, this one scene where everybody is just bright red. So other than that, I think it's fine. So like I said, I'm going to cut it off there. I'm actually going to talk about everything afterwards. So this might be 3 different videos now. Didn't realize I had so much to talk about. Like I always say, I can talk about movies for hours and hours on end. That's why you never want to get into a film conversation with me, because I will talk your damn ear off. So yeah, I'll cut it off there. I'll be back next Thursday with another 4K box set stream, 8:30 p.m. Central. Hope to see you there. I'm also going to be streaming my Dungeons & Dragons campaign, Tides of Flame, this Saturday, most likely in the evening, so probably around 7 p.m. On Twitch. So twitch.tv/statblock20 if you're interested. Eventually, I'll release that episode here on my YouTube channel for everyone to watch. Usually I try to give it a few weeks on Twitch to get some traction, and then I'll release it here. So stay tuned for that. And then plus I'll be back at the end of the month for the recent pickup stream. You've already seen one thing that I've spoiled for it. Probably, if I'm thinking about it right now, I might not even have one this month because I've not bought anything. I've bought movies. I've got pre-orders that are coming up, but I've not really bought any games. I think one game has showed up this month that I pre-ordered, and that's it. So maybe I'll just hold off and do like a August and September thing. We'll see. But anyway, thanks for coming and hanging out with me, everybody. Thanks, Retro Coop, Waves and Games, TJ. Let's see who else. VGM. Yeah, everybody. Thanks for coming and hanging out with me. I really appreciate each and every one of you. Stay safe out there. I will talk to you hopefully next week. Chris of Midlife Crisis Media out.
Aw, dang.